What up, Bulls Nation? We've got a live CHGO Bulls podcast coming up right now. On today's show, lots to get to. The Bulls coaching search has it officially narrowed down to 4 remaining candidates, one of whom, like other front office hires, is a former colleague of Bryson Graham. We'll talk about those candidate names and their resumes, plus taking a closer look at Nate Ament, Tennessee's a lottery projected prospect. And if we got some time, could Giannis be on the move before draft night? All coming up next. What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to the CHGO Bulls podcast, coming to you live from our Xfinity Loft here in the West Loop, downtown Chicago. Thanks for being here with us. Hit that like button if you're hanging out in that chat. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck, joined by my guy, Will Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb. Wow. King of Controls, the one and only of White Sox fame, hanging out with us today, Sean Anderson. What up, Sean?
What up, man? What up, go?
Hope everybody's enjoying their Wednesday and staying cool if you're here in Chicago, because it is hot.
It's hot, and it's about to start
and
storming.
Perhaps about to start storming as the
door to
wind
our right
just blew
just
our
blew.
balcony door open. We got some demons on the balcony, Sean. Lock it up tight. Do we need to go to the crawl space? Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead. As you were saying before we started, Chicago's apparently turned into a tropical climate of sorts.
It's like raining. The other day when I was on with Dave, it started pouring halfway through our show.
Weird.
I'm, just trying to survive out here. You never know what you're going to get.
You never know. Shout out Forrest Gump. Shout out to Beef Dip in the chat, who was saying, have to get my chats in early since I'm always at work during the live show. Thanks for the hard work, gentlemen. You're so very welcome. Beef Dip was also asking about this whole gossip circle of the Bulls looking to move up from 15 to target one of these lottery guards. We could talk about that, and when we're going to talk about Nate Ament as well a little bit later on today's show. Shout out to Believer, Buzelis fan, Skox. Shout out to Few53, said good morning from Sydney, Australia. Go Bulls. Shout out to everybody. What up, Giggities? Thanks for joining us, everybody. Devin, what's going on? All right, so lots to get to. We're going to start with the updates from the Bulls coaching search. And to do so, why don't we take the temp of that Bulls coaching search, Sean? Taking the temp is brought to you by our friends at Four Seasons, your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for other special offers and money-saving coupons. It's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. So let's start with Stein and Fischer, who on last night's most recent Stein Line Substack had some interesting stuff to say, including the following, Sean, if you will. The Bulls League sources say have begun bringing select candidates to Chicago for in-person interviews this week, following the team's array of virtual meetings in search of the successor to Billy Donovan. Trailblazers acting coach Tiago Splitter, Hawks assistant coach Ryan Schmidt, and Timberwolves assistant Micah Nori are among the Chicago finalists. As we reported last week, Chicago is also still considering incumbent Bulls assistant Wes Unseld Jr. A few other pieces of context to that reporting that they added were that both Micah Nori and Splitter are also finalists still for the Portland job, as they're looking for a successor to Chauncey Billups. They also dropped the fact that should Wes Unseld Jr. not get the head coaching job, possibilities that he remains on in a supporting role on the staff, and or that other people on Billy Donovan's former staff could also stay in supporting roles. So just starting there, what do you make of this latest narrowing down of names?
Well, I think that's an important place to start in terms of the context, because I believe in the quote, it said that these are the names among the finalists. And if you recall from a couple of weeks ago, when the finalists for the executive vice president job were cut down to 2 or 3, then the next day we got more reporting that there were a couple other names in the mix. So I think that's worth pointing out. just because these are like the people that we know so far does not mean that these are all the people. It would not surprise me if there are a couple other names in here, maybe one, maybe a couple. I don't know that, but I would just venture to guess. But then, yeah, you see what these names are. And I guess like the first thing I think is none of these names are super compelling to me.
Agreed.
I don't really feel like there's sort of like a Ben Johnson up and coming. This guy's going to be like a star head coach from day one, and he's been at the top of the coaching carousel for the last couple of years. There's not a candidate like that in this year's coaching carousel, at least for the NBA.
Would you say that if there was one, his name was Sean Sweeney and he took the Orlando job?
Possibly. But I still think it's a little bit harder to identify what assistant coaches at the NBA level are doing and what they're responsible for compared to in the NFL, where it's like Ben Johnson is running the offense for the Lions.
Right.
So I think you could have a little bit more clarity about like how good Ben Johnson is going to be compared to these guys, because we don't really know like what they're running. And ultimately I think the head coach is responsible for most things, and they delegate, of course. But I think a lot of it is like working with the players and doing player development stuff, warming them up, and then also like helping film review and like in coaches meetings. But it's just like, it's not like they're sitting out there calling up the plays, because the NBA just doesn't work like that. It's a continuous thing as opposed to like an every down possession. So I think that's a good place to start, just because I think a lot of people have strong opinions when I just don't know that you can really have a strong opinion about any of these guys, except for maybe Tiago Splitter, because he's the only one with real head coaching experience.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. And, I know Bulls fans have been patiently, or for some impatiently, waiting on the news of who this hire is going to be for a while now. And it seems like week by week we've been getting reporting that, okay, they're going to bring some of these people in, the finalists, for in-person interviews, and we should find out by later this week, early next week at the latest. And then that reporting basically just got copy-pasted from last week into now this week to say, hey, maybe by the end of this week we'll know, or maybe early next week. But all various reporting has stated that it is firmly believed that Bryson Graham and his crew will have a pick and a new head coach named before night one of the NBA draft, coming up on June, 23rd?
23rd.
A week from this coming Tuesday. So as long as that is still the case, I'm not going to get all super stressed about this, but I am also a bit underwhelmed if these are the four finalists. I know you just said, Goat, they used the phrasing among the finalists, so maybe there are more, and these are just four of those names. If they're moving from phase virtual interview to in-person interview, my guess would be that the list shrinks. Not to say that they, can't also have shrunk that list. That does include names that aren't among these four that were reported last night and again this morning. I'm just saying it stands to reason that the Bulls aren't going to bring in to in-person interviews, secondary or tertiary interviews, guys who aren't making that cut among their finalists that they're really considering seriously.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Just, if they're going to bring them into Chicago, then we're reaching a more serious level. And I think that was kind of the verbiage from last week or the couple of weeks ago, where it's like, we should know by next week, meaning this week, who the finalists are going to be. And I think that's kind of where we are now. I should also correct myself. Obviously, Tiago Splitter, who I mentioned, has head coaching experience.
So does Unseld.
Unseld is the other name that has head coaching experience, 2 years with the Wizards, and then Micah Nori in the playoffs, filling in for Chris Finch. So, I don't know. I guess like my first reaction to all this is just like, are any of these guys going to be better than Billy Donovan?
No.
So
I know that that's probably an unpopular take among Bulls fans, many of whom thought Billy was the problem for the last couple of years of his tenure. I think most of us on this show, and those of you in our audience know that those of us on this show, would vehemently disagree with that notion and cited continuously the lack of talent that Billy had to work with.
And I think it does, just being a better coach or not is like kind of a subjective thing in some capacities. And also what makes a good coach might be different for different teams in different contexts. So I personally think Billy did a good job with a lot of the young players on this team. I think there were some that fell through the cracks, and obviously guys like a Derek Jones Jr. who didn't play great with the Bulls, but then went on to play great with another organization. I think that's, you could criticize the Bulls for that and for Billy for that. But I do think context is going to be the most important thing. And the Bulls' context right now is they need to develop young players and get these guys understanding and playing NBA basketball at a high level and developing those skill sets. So I don't know like which one of these guys would be the best at that. I would say like the one we know the least about is Ryan Schmidt. Obviously, he's the one that hasn't been like in the spotlight quite as much. He's with the Hawks now, has bounced around a little bit in the NBA, worked for the Raptors, in the G League, in the NBA. So it's just like which one of these guys is going to end up being the best player development. And, it's not just the head coach for that too. A lot of it is who you put on your staff and what kind of player development staff do you put together.
No, I just wanted to, AJ in the chat, you brought up this name when we were talking pre-show. We don't got to beat around it. Everyone's wondering whether or not Chris Quinn is still in the running. As Will mentioned, a Final Four was named, but this doesn't necessarily mean they are the finalist, right? So is Chris Quinn still a thing?
Well, interesting that you brought that up, and that AJ Katz, shout out to you, brought that up in the chat. That's something else that we were going to touch on because, oh my goodness, that was a big old thunderbolt. Everybody still alive? Okay.
TV just went off for a second. I missed it.
That was following this reporting from Marc, Stein, and Jake Fischer last night. Brett Siegel for Clutch Points this morning had an article about the Bulls and their draft situation and their coaching search, and he noted the following. Chris Quinn, another candidate who was said to be at the top candidate early in the Bulls process, is expected to return to the Miami Heat and continue his tenure as Eric Spoelstra's lead assistant, according to sources. The thing with Quinn is Siegel here, couldn't get a firm, quote, yes or no in terms of him advancing the Bulls search. All that was said about the Heat assistant is that he is, quote, probably going back to Miami. So when I read that this morning, I was not super pleased because I did think that Chris Quinn made sense as one of the remaining top candidates, given the resume, given the coaching tree he's coming from, given the organization and culture of winning that he would be coming from with the Miami Heat. So the way that Siegel reported that, and I'm curious your angle on it, Goat, not quite sure if it means that the Bulls brought in Chris Quinn for an interview or a couple of interviews virtually and moved on from him and said, thanks for coming in, we're going to go a different direction. Or if Chris Quinn interviewed for the job, the Bulls were still very much interested, but then Chris Quinn decided, you know what, I'm good where I am.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe they're just like starting with these four names and they're going to do the in-person interviews and then they're going to decide whether they want to move forward with those four or if they're going to expand it back again and bring somebody like a Chris Quinn or somebody else in for a round of interview and kind of add them to that bunch. So there's just so much we don't know. I get that people want to like pick apart all the details here and people want to have opinions or pull for one guy or another. I think like at the end of the day, all these guys are going to be like roughly within the same category. I don't think any of them have like best coach in the league potential just because it sounds kind of reductive to say, but I just think they would already be a head coach if that was the case. Like, there's openings every year. These guys are all interviewing against each other. Like, I don't know. I feel like one of them would have stood out among the rest and gotten a job previously. But with that being said, like Jordan Ott was kind of one of those similar types of candidates last year, and he was fantastic with the Suns last year. So it just kind of depends. I guess I'm curious to know less about like who's it going to be and what is the time frame and all that stuff. And I'm more interested in like how are they going to be with the young players? What kind of a culture are they going to establish? What's their identity as a coach? Are they going to be defensive or offensively oriented or both? So we'll just kind of I feel like it's just kind of a have to wait and see situation.
Rain Man's in the chat saying the fact that Wes Unseld Jr. is even considered is a problem. Is problematic to me from the get-go. A bit more context on the Unseld Jr. part of this equation from our guy Joe Cali of the Sun-Times, who had a write-up about the coaching search as well today, saying that, and this is something that I think Dave and I were talking about on one of our episodes last week while you were working hard on those draft profiles, Go. Is Unseld Jr. getting this interview or interviews as a courtesy for his time spent committed to the Bulls while not maybe being a super serious candidate? And if so, like, why waste everyone's time? Cowley, according to his sources, one known in this coaching search is that Wes Unseld Jr. interview was not done as just a favor for the current Bulls assistant. He is a finalist and has impressed throughout the process. And then, of course, Joe went on to speak of the other candidates alongside Unseld. So it sounds like Unseld Jr. is still very much in the running for this job, which Dave and I were talking about last week, Goat, and not super enthused about, just because, and I think as Dave put it, just like a lot of what we have right now as far as covering this team and being fans of the team, looking forward to a fresh start, is a fresh start in a lot of areas. Michael Reinsdorf sounding like a different person, taking over, trying to take a different spin from his dad about the way that they're going to take themselves a bit more seriously, knock on wood. A new front office. Ooh. Boom! Sorry, Jerry, I didn't mean it. I was just kidding. And a new head coach, a bunch of new, a huge influx of new young talent. If there's a holdover, even if it's like a 1 year bridge gap, you've been here, stay here for a year, as we move through, like, it would just leave a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth if that was the answer, while also knowing that the resume itself is not glowing in any particular way.
Well, I think the other thing is, and we got to go to break here so we can maybe talk more about this on the other side, but the other thing is, like, Joe is tweeting today, and he has been consistent with this. I know other reporters have been as well, that Bryson's going to have the budget that he needs or that he wants to be able to go out and get anyone. So, the Bulls went, like, with an inexperienced and presumably, like, cheaper is probably, like, not the right word to use, but, like, I would imagine it took a lot more for the Mavericks to hire Masai Ujiri than it did for the Bulls to hire Bryson Graham. So, yeah, maybe, like, it would have been better to go bigger fish hunting if you've got all this extra budget or you have the latitude to be able to do whatever you want. I don't know. I feel like that could have been a different path because, and again, it's like I'm operating without a ton of information on this too, but it's just like none of these guys are really like, this is the guy they have to have. And I didn't feel that way about any of the assistants when the list was much longer.
Yeah.
But I just don't really feel like, okay, they're getting a real name here. Even like Billy, I think when Arturas and Marc went to go get him, it's like they had their sights set on a target. They went out and got him. And it's going a totally different direction. Not to say it's better or worse, but I just certainly don't think that anybody they're getting right now is on par with Billy when Arturas and Marc got him, in 2020.
On that note, let's knock out our first ad break. We'll come back on the other side, dive more into this Bulls coaching search conversation, including taking a little bit of a closer look at Ryan Schmidt, who now has aggressively joined the conversation as a name among the list of finalists. And yes, that's right. He does have a pre-existing attachment to Bryson Graham. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel while you listen to these words from our friends and sponsors. We'll be right back. CHGO Bulls is brought to you by Sunnyside Dispensary, your home for judgment-free shopping. And great news, because the Stash Pass from Sunnyside is live now through Labor Day. Stash Pass is Sunnyside's summer rewards program that lets you earn rewards simply by visiting and making qualifying purchases. Every visit earns a stamp, bringing you closer to your next reward. After every 4 visits, you'll unlock a reward on that 5th trip and advance to the next stage with bigger rewards available as you progress throughout the summer season. Live now through September while supplies last, giving you plenty of opportunities to earn rewards all summer long. Also, be sure to check out that good news brand Tea Time Vapes, now in stock. Tea Time is a lemonade flavor, so it should go well with an Arnold Palmer on the golf course all summer long. Head to their website for only the best under the sun, including new customers getting 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Use promo code HICHGO at checkout. Sunnyside Dispensary, only the best under the sun, only for 21 and older, and Illinois Med card holders.
Did your AC stop working? Dealing with a clogged drain?
Ooh.
Got a little extra outlet installed?
Oh, no.
Know who's got you covered? 4 Seasons. They're available 24/7 with emergency service and no extra charges for nights, weekends, or holidays.
Celebrate!
With over 30,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can count on trusted service every single time because, folks, that heat is not only around the corner, it's here. Today is brutal outside, and you want your air conditioner working for that. Call 4 Seasons now to complete that AC tune-up for just $89.95, backed by a 1-year no-breakdown guarantee. And during their spring savings event, 4 Seasons is offering up to 72 months of interest-free financing, up to $4,000 in rebates. For all your cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs, you know who to call. For all the right reasons, call 866-4-SEASONS. 4 Seasons, your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. Visit 4seasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's 4seasonsheatingcooling.com.
CHGO Bulls rolling along here on Wednesday afternoon. Peck, Goat, our guy Sean on the controls. Thanks for being here with us, Bulls Nation. Diving back into that chat, talking about this Bulls coaching search. Shout out to Flipside, who said, it's a split decision for me, as in Tiago Splitter. And Elier Denadiel, sorry if I totally butchered that, saying Master Splitter. A couple of good puns, Tiago Splitter related. Shout out TMNT. I feel like I've seen a lot of Bulls fans who are open to, if not enthusiastic about the idea of Tiago Splitter. Somebody else was mentioning his tie to, of course, the great Wise Pop. That was Paul Santiago in the chat. Shout out to you. And whereas, that was during his playing days. He was a champion with the San Antonio Spurs back when Pop was, perusing that sideline. Probably soaked up some solid knowledge, but to me, and it goes to, I think our guy Daddy Fish had a chat about this, we're going to need a couple of years. The Bulls are going to need a couple of years to build this rebuild out, and it might mean that it's not the most enticing job on the market. There are still three positions to be filled, Bulls, Blazers, and Mavs. And it also, I think, means that we won't exactly know for a couple of years if Bryson Graham nailed this coaching hire, whoever it might be ago.
Well, that's possibly true, but I think in the past we've seen guys like Will Hardy and Jordi Fernandez clearly establish themselves as very, very good coaches on bad rebuilding teams, and then get extended and have an opportunity to grow with the team. I think we've also seen it where it goes the other way, and the coach is just Brian Keefe, I think, is an example with the Wizards, where it's he hasn't exactly done much to show that he's a great developmental coach or has a deep bag of X's and O's to put his players in good situations, but so much of it is just that team has been trying to be as bad as possible for the last several years. How can we really know for sure? And that's kind of why they're keeping him and hanging on to him. So it's just tough. I think for me, the one guy, I don't really have a problem with Wes Unseld at all. He's obviously had head coaching experience, but went through it with the Wizards as they were beginning their rebuild, gets fired basically into the front office, and then leaves and has been on the Bulls staff. And I just feel you and Dave have both said this, but I have zero problem with Wes Unseld. I'm sure he's a fine head coach. I didn't really watch him very carefully when he was working with the rebuilding Wizards, but even Billy Donovan left because he felt the team needed a fresh start, and I feel that is what the team needs. So maybe they hold on to some of those guys in more of an assistant capacity. Maybe they want to just make it a little bit easier for some of the guys who are still on the roster to continue building and growing, guys like Modest or even Leonard Miller and Rob Dillingham, the players that came at the deadline that are going to be around. Maybe that helps them. But I do think bringing in a fresh vision would be useful. So I probably lean towards one of the other three. But again, that's not a shot at Wes. It's just that I think a fresh start is what I think this team is in need of.
John?
AJ in the chat too. Shout out AJ. My bro and I were just chatting about how if you look at almost every team that has been rebuilding the last 4 to 5 years, their coach at the time wasn't their coach by the time they got competitive. Even just thinking back in history, Steve Kerr didn't start coaching Steph Curry until 2014, 2015. First year they won a title. And even looking at Boston too, they went from Stevens, Udoka to Joe. Mm-hmm. It's been a wild ride there, even for a championship team.
True. I think oftentimes that is the case. Sometimes, Dagnall kind of came up along with that young Thunder team that became champions and did so fairly quickly.
And he clearly established himself as a good developmental coach and
yes.
Very smart X's and O's right away, even with the bad team.
And that is something else worth pointing out, and I think it was in some part of Siegel's latest reporting on this morning for Clutch Points, is that any of these names that we're talking about among the finalists, they are all known to be skilled and adept in the player development category of what you want from an NBA head coach. And one of those names being Ryan Schmidt is interesting, and we haven't talked about him much. His name did come up, I think, back in mid-May in one of these various reports, but we haven't spent much time talking on him because maybe I'm not saying he's been less interesting of a name among the candidates that we have had, but maybe not towards the top of any Bulls fans' priority list or the Bulls themselves. Now we get the report that he is among the finalists. So just a quick rundown of Schmidt's coaching resume. First coaching job, NBA related, was with Raptors 905, for whom he was an assistant from 2017 to 21. He also had a couple of side hustles coaching the Hamilton Honey Badgers, that's right, of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. He was the head coach there for 3 years, from 2020 to 23. The London Lions of the British Basketball League, also a head coach there from 21 to 23. Then he got a gig coaching the Atlanta Hawks G League team as their head coach in the 23-24 G League season. That would be the College Park Skyhawks. Then getting promoted to join that Atlanta Hawks bench as an assistant from 2023 through the present. And if you know where Bryson Graham was, then you know that there was some overlap between Ryan Schmidt and Bryson Graham when Bryson Graham left the Pelicans to spend this past year with Atlanta. And shout out to our guy, Gary Ross, always active and hanging out in that CHGO Die Hard Bulls Discord. He is not the only Bulls fan who has been curious about all of these names that are tied by 1 degree of separation, or 0 degrees of separation, if you will, to the Bulls' new lead executive, Bryson Graham, whether it be Atlanta or New Orleans, coming with names like AC Law in the Bulls front office, among a few others. So, what about that when it comes to Schmidt being one of these candidates? Would that raise an eyebrow of concern for you if it's just, well, the Bulls are hiring this guy because Bryson Graham knows this guy and liked this guy when they worked together for a year in Atlanta, and this is just a clear, easy, simple decision?
Not really. I mean, I guess I can understand why people would be concerned about that. We talked about it when they hired I'm forgetting the exact names off the top of my head, Kaufman and Sutton.
Right, yes.
For the front office roles and for the GM.
The Windy City GM, and then that scout that they hired, yeah.
I just don't, I think basketball is very much a relationships business, and they only overlapped for 1 year, I would think, in Atlanta, so it's not like they're...
Bryson was only there for 1 year.
Came up together, and they're just jumping on each other's coattails. They didn't come up together. They overlapped for a year. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. And frankly, I just don't think that's something to be concerned about in general. If you're starting to see people get jobs where there are obviously better candidates available getting passed over, that's maybe where you could start to have some questions about it. But again, I just don't think that there's anybody on this current, in this current landscape that's wow, this person really stands out. It's an obvious choice. And that's probably why part of this is taking as long as it is. As frustrated as some people might be with that, I don't really have a problem with it. But I think the fact that there's just not a name out there that's yeah, we have to go get this guy. That's probably what is contributing to the fact that there are people who are connected in the mix here. But I've heard good things about Ryan Schmidt, and I think he would be eventually in line for one of these jobs anyway. So I think he's very much in that same category. I think if anything, with some of these other guys, Nori, Splitter, and Unseld, it's you've seen what they have been able to do, so you kind of have a better sense of what their ceiling is and also what their floor is. Mm-hmm. There's obviously more risk in going with somebody who's a little bit more unknown, but there could be more upside in that too.
And, the interesting thing about Nori, I think, is that he is one of those names tied to both the Bulls and Blazers job now. Theoretically, the Blazers are still considering Tiago Splitter, and the other part about Siegel's reporting today is that the Bulls are trying to lure Splitter away from Portland with a better offer and a stronger commitment. Hey, we'll give you a 4-year contract. We'll let you start our rebuild from the ground up. Seems like whatever's going on in Portland is a lot more wishy-washy enthusiasm and commitment to you as their coach of the future kind of situation based on all that we're hearing. But when it comes to Nori or Splitter, Goat, that to me is when finally, time is of the essence as a part of this equation comes into the equation. Because as long as the Bulls got their guy before draft night, I'm good. But if you're talking about losing out on candidates and your preferred candidates because other teams make decisive action and decisions and offers and get people to sign on the dotted line before you do, then that's when I think you can start asking questions.
Well, I mean, the Blazers haven't confirmed or committed to Splitter yet either. The Mavericks haven't hired a head coach. So I don't think the Bulls are behind the 8 ball in this right away. I know people were frustrated about Sean Sweeney. That's just an objectively better job than what the Bulls have to offer.
Correct.
Right now. So I'm not concerned about that either. I think they're going through the process, and I think right now, if you're considering those things that you're talking about a problem, I think it's too early to do that. We just don't know. And maybe like you will be right and it will be a problem at some point. But like right now, I just don't view it that way.
I mean, okay. Yeah. I think for the most part, I agree with you. And I definitely agree with you about the Sean Sweeney thing. Bulls fans were really mad about that. And we're like, what's Bryson Graham doing? He's wasting time. We lost out on Sean Sweeney because he's sitting on his hands. No. Educated guesses stands to reason. Sean Sweeney was interested in both jobs. Both teams wanted him, and he picked the team that is more in line to win now.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. When it comes to this, and if you're competing for the services of Splitter and or Nori, then I might be a little bit worried about, hey, don't lose out on the guy you really want.
But Splitter might, we don't know what the situation is with Portland. Like
That's
he might have to wait on them, or he like may not have.
It doesn't sound like they actually want Splitter at all.
It doesn't, but I think they are looking for ways to go cheap.
Yeah.
And if Splitter doesn't have any other options, they might be able to go cheap for him. So I think he's using the Bulls as leverage as much as the Blazers are probably trying to, make him, take a lower salary because they're his only option.
Right, yeah. A doctor professor saying, hey, at least we're not as cheap as Portland. Hey, cross your fingers, knock on wood, and let's hope that that's actually true. We got to knock out our second half break. When we come back on the other side, we'll shift gears and take a closer look at Nate Ament, the forward from Tennessee, who is projected to go in the lottery. Could he be on the board at 15? Or are the Bulls looking to move up for a guard? I don't know. We'll talk about all the latest draft stuff next.
You ever have any big dreams about starting your own business? Maybe as a kid, you wanted to run your own thing, not have to be anybody's boss or make anybody tell you what to do. What about now? Thinking about starting your own business? Need help figuring it out? You know who to look to. It is Shopify, the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Shopify has you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email, and social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. Shopify even powers our merch locker, the CHGO merch store, and you can get this one I'm wearing right now with the pizza on the back, which is my favorite. Matt's got on the Red Bulls flag.
Bulls red, baby.
You can grab that one too. So if you're ready to sell, you are ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into reality with Shopify on your side. Sign up for a $1 per month trial to start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity to get going on your big business idea today.
CHGO Bulls is also brought to you by Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. And now is your chance to score a great deal at the Make This the Summer event. Head to Ray CDJR on Route 12 today to choose from their huge inventory on new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram models. And right now you can get up to $14,000 off MSRP plus 2.9% financing for 72 months on the new 2026 Ram 1500 Crew Cab. That's what I'm talking about. Plus, since they prioritize affordability, you know you won't overpay for the vehicle you need. And with that raised price promise, you can shop confidently, knowing that you won't have any add-ons or hidden fees ever when you're finding that right car or truck for you. The price you see is the price you pay. So don't miss out on the Make This the Summer event for huge savings on the Ram 1500 Crew Cab. For more information, you can visit Ray CDJR today on Route 12 in Fox Lake or online at raycdjr.com. They return to the community.
When?
1963. CHGO Bulls rolling along. Thanks for being here with us, Bulls Nation. Shout out to Mike's in the chat. Not trying to pick on anybody, but clearly somebody upset with this report earlier today that the Bulls are interested in trading up from 15. Bryson Graham wants to trade up from 15, and to do so, target one of these top-tier guards that are projected to go after the main four names go, starting at 5 and going through that 10, 11, 12 range. Like, just because you read a report today or tomorrow or the next day that the Bulls are interested in doing this or the Bulls are hearing that or other teams are hearing this about the Bulls wanting to do that, until things actually happen, I think we can be just a little bit chill. I had my phase of being a fly-off-the-handle Bulls fan. It's when there was still an incompetent person making all the decisions. We don't know how good or not good Bryson Graham is at the job yet. So why don't we just react to things as they come and not give ourselves unnecessary heart attacks talking about a report of something that hasn't happened yet?
100%. I just think even on the reporting side, it's so difficult to get a sense for what these guys want to do when I have no relationship with them yet. Mm-hmm. Like, that's something that takes a long time to build up. And even then, I think there's like a lot of smoke and a lot of stuff that nobody wants out. But I just don't think that we can. Literally nothing. Bryson Graham has done nothing so far.
Yeah.
Like he's hired a few people and he moved up in the lottery. That's it. So if you're talking about like judging him based on his actions, you just can't do it right now. If you're judging him based on some rumors, like I think that's getting worked up for the sake of getting worked up. And that's fine. Like that's part of being a fan, and you know, you can get excited about or have reactions to rumors and stuff like that. That's no problem. But I agree. It's not like we're talking about, you know, the old regime where, you know, we have a long track record of not liking the trades that they made and then hearing a report about another trade that we wouldn't like,
right,
and then getting worked up about that. Like, I think those are separate things. And right now we just don't know anything about like what Bryson Graham wants. Like he said the slap thing, I think people have really run with that.
Sure have.
I don't even know like how, you know, integral to, I think it's like a part of his philosophy. I don't think that's like his only thing that he's going to do is like get along at, like he drafted Jordan Hawkins. Is that a slap guy? So I don't know how much we can really assign any value to any of this stuff right now because it's so brand new.
Yeah.
And again, if this was somebody whose track record we were more familiar with, if we did have relationships with him, I think it would be a different story. Mm-hmm. But right now, there's 2 more weeks until the draft. I think we're just going to have to wait. And maybe something happens before that, but we'll just have to see.
And maybe some of this reporting is just coming out as other teams, executives and scouts and whatever, speculating about the fact that Bryson Graham and the Bulls have brought in a wide variety of first-round prospect draft picks. Because, to me, what that says is Bryson Graham is aware that he has a high lottery pick and the end of the lottery first pick after the lottery pick. 2 picks in the top 15. Teams are going to be making calls the day before the draft and on draft night. And I think Bryson Graham wants to feel confident in any and all possibilities of trading up from 4, trading down from 4, trading up from 15, trading down from 15. And that's why you've seen the long list of players' names who they're bringing in for pre-draft workouts.
Yep.
I don't think it necessarily means anything beyond that. Just trying to, shout out Scar, be prepared.
And like my draft board is not the gospel by any means, but right
It
now,
is.
if I were to break it down into tiers, I would have a tier of 4 at the top. I would have a tier of 5 after that, including Wagler, Acuff, Mara, Flemings, and Michael Brown. And then I would have a smaller tier of 3 players, Braden Burries, Yaxel Lendeberg, and Merez Johnson from 10 to 12. And then I have a bigger tier of 7, Nate Ament, Swain, Carr, Quaintance, Steinbach, Philon, and Akori from 13 to 19. So if you think about where the Bulls are in those groups, you're right at the back end of the first tier, and then you're right in the middle of, the 4th tier.
Yeah.
So that's just my board. Like I highly, highly doubt, and it would be impossible for everybody to have the same groupings as I do. But like if you're thinking about moving up or down from 4, or I should say like up from 15 or down from 4, you have to know what kind of player you're getting in. And so I think it's worthwhile to work those guys out. Same thing if you want to move up from 4 or up from 15, like you're into that category of players. So I think that's worth, working them out, because ultimately if you fall in love with the guy and you think he's going to be a star and you can get him for a price that you feel comfortable paying, like you should probably do it. I don't know that I would be as convicted about any of these guys and want to go give up future draft capital in order to do that. But the other thing that we do have to go on right now is Bryson Graham continually saying, we're going to be patient. This is going to take time. We're at the ground floor.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is we're 1 move away from, let's trade 2 future first round picks plus 15 to go up and get Keaton Wagler. And now we've got Giddey, Wagler, Modis, and Caleb, and we're off to the races. Like, I just don't think that the Bulls are in that kind of a position right now. And on top of that, we've heard Bryson say that he doesn't think the Bulls are in that kind of a position right now. So I wouldn't get too worked up about anything other than what we actually know. And what we know is they are going to take their time.
Yeah. One of those names that you did mention in one of those second or third tiers projected mid to late lottery is Tennessee forward Nate Ament, who, if you haven't caught it yet, the most recent of those incredible draft profiles from our one and only Willie Goat Gottlieb. They have an incredible 5 minutes or less on all of the projected lottery picks, essentially, in this draft coming up on June 23rd. You can catch it. Sean's going to share that Nate Ament link in the chat for you, and that one actually is a playlist for all of GOAT's draft profile, starting with Ament, working all the way back to that top 4 that were the first ones to drop. So go give that a view after today's show if you haven't. But we wanted to spend a bit more time talking about Ament today because we haven't talked about him at length yet compared to some of these other prospects. Likely, would you say, GOAT, that he is off the board somewhere between 5 and 14, a.k.a. between the 2 first Bulls picks? But maybe he, in some universe, falls to 15?
I think that there's a real possibility. He's gotten a lot of attention this week off some rumors that the Nets were interested in him at 6.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of raised his stock. I probably like a week or two ago, I would have guessed that he would be kind of in the 15 to 20 range. And like you just hear about him and like the efficiency's bad, the stats are really bad. He's very raw. But in doing this deep dive, I actually came away liking him a little bit more than I thought I would. He is very much a project, but a very long, fluid guy who looks like he can shoot it. He can't shoot it right now. The numbers are not good. We can talk about all that stuff, but I did come away liking him a little bit more. And so I could see a team wanting him. I would say 6 is probably a little rich, but maybe there's a trade down there.
Yeah.
So that could be an option, but I think he is a really interesting prospect. I would just say big picture, I don't love the fit with the Bulls because you have guys like Noah and Modest, and granted, I don't think you're making decisions solely based on those guys in your roster today. But it just becomes at a certain point a little bit hard to get those guys playing time. I do think he's more of a 3, but I think you're gonna have to play Modest at the 3, especially if it's Caleb at 4,
right? Where
it just becomes hard to play those guys, and if it's hard to play them, it becomes difficult to develop them.
Yeah, somebody in the chat earlier was asking about Nate Ament, saying like, is it a fit with the Bulls and what their front court looks like right now? And I was just doing the same math in my head as you were saying it. If Caleb Wilson is your pick at 4, and you're shifting Modest at the 3 because maybe that's a better spot for him on the floor, he feels comfortable there. He can do more for you on the floor there. Then if Nate Ament projects to be more of an NBA 3, and I think I agree with you. I mean, for as crazy as his length is, I still think he's more of a 3. And so
he moves like a 3.
Is he superseding Modest as your 3? If Modest shifts to the 3 because now Caleb Wilson is your 4. So an interesting part of the equation there.
But I would also just say, hot take, I mean, I think Giddey's a 3 too. Like, he is not guarding 1s and 2s. You do have to kind of put him on forwards.
Well, he's not guarding them well.
I just don't think you can't really do that. Like, he's just not equipped.
Yeah.
So if you're playing Giddey and Modest and Caleb Wilson and presumably a center with them, like, who are you putting on? You're putting Modest basically on 2s and putting the shooting guard, quote unquote, on 1s.
Yeah.
And that's just a tough way. And again, I'm not making decisions based on like the group that they have, but it's hard to, you can't really put Nate Ament in there and ask him to guard, Devin Booker and guys like that on a nightly basis and expect him to really develop, because that's really not his position. And maybe he develops into that. Maybe he's got more of that than I think he does or anticipate. But it's just like, I think there is a middle ground or the center of the Venn diagram where it's like you're taking the best talent available, but you're also trying to find a spot for him where you can get the most out of him so that the talent is turning into something, right? It's not just like, getting the best talent and sitting him on the bench because you got 3 guys at his same position. You can't play him.
Right. Which is something the former regime may have done, but hopefully not Bryson. And look, I mean, Ament is coming into this draft class with some pretty impressive hardware for a one-and-done freshman. Not only was he all SEC freshman team selection, he was just flat-out all SEC. And, the production was there, nearly 17 points a game and 6 boards a game. You mentioned the shooting, though, and that's why it's a big red flag for a lot of people evaluating the players in this draft class, Goat, because he shot sub 40% from the field. If you have those stats that you want to share now, Sean, thank you. And look, I mean, 39.9, so yes, technically sub 40%, but essentially 40% from the field, which still, again, is not great when you're talking about overall field goal percentage. The 3-point percentage of 33 essentially is fine, not great. I will say, though, if there's something to be encouraged about, I think it's the fact that he shot nearly 80% from the free throw line, and that's not a low volume. I was surprised to go and look at his stats today and see, dude, he was taking 6 or 7 free throws a game at Tennessee, which is nothing to sneeze at. No,
he was, and it's like, it's just very interesting because in that way he kind of reminds you of Noah Senge, who at Ulm last year was like, his free throw attempt rate, I don't have it off the top of my head, was just like incredible. And that was like a real indicator for him of like maybe having a little bit more there. And so Nate Ament was like really smooth. I think he was like a top 5 prospect coming into the year. Really struggled shooting the ball. Did have a stretch through the middle of the season where he shot it a little bit better, but he was just so inconsistent. He'd have like a 2 for 11 game, and then you'd have like a 6 for 8, but then he would like have 3 games where he was shooting like under 25, 30%. So it's just really tough. I do feel like with him, he has the fluidity and he has the shooting touch to get there, but his frame is just so skinny, and he's not even like as skinny as Modest was or even Noah at the draft. But he just needs to really add core strength so that he can get to his shots. Like getting to the rim, he did have some creative stuff, but he just got pushed off his line so many times. And even just like getting into shots, you watch him and it's just like, it's tough for him to like get into a shooting motion when he's like coming off of a screen because guys are bumping him and he's just very, very skinny and doesn't have that kind of frame yet. But I do feel like in that way, if he adds some weight and adds some core strength, that could really unlock a lot of things for him and make him finish a little bit better around the rim. That was a real problem for him. 51.8% on rim shots. That could help him get into his shot a little bit more off the dribble, 37% on long twos. So I just think that will go a long way with him in a way that probably is true for some other players like him. I'm thinking of like, Cam Reddish or Modest or, guys that struggled shooting the ball in college, but were really skinny and were able to kind of figure some of that out at the NBA level. I could see him being in that category. And if he does, I think he got a really interesting player there because of his size and fluidity.
You brought up the SNG free throw stats. At least in the World or Euro Cup with Ulm in his last year, he took the 4th most free throw attempts in that tournament, nearly 5.6 a game.
I can pull it up from my last year database as well.
Bulls legend Noah Senge. Year 2 of Senge is loading, y'all.
It could happen.
I think in the G League he was like 4.8 per game.
80% free throw rate. So that means on 4 out of every 5 shots he was getting fouled.
That's crazy. Shout out to Bizella's fan who said, we just have so many 6'10 wings, LOL. I'd rather take a guard or a big at that 15th pick. But Ament has some tools for sure. Just such a project. Now is the time for projects, if we're being honest. As opposed to, I feel like Noah last year did not make a ton of sense as a pick because he was very much a very young project, and AK was trying to stay quote-unquote competitive. Dysfunctional, meanwhile, in the chat saying that big fan of trading up for Kingston Flemings or Keaton Wagler because Goat's video sold me on those 2 guys. That's right, y'all.
I'm actually interested to know if people have watched all those videos, like, how do you think I rank those players? I just kind of curious, like,
because
what my tone
you have
was.
your big board, right?
Exactly.
And based on those videos, I will say, like, I was surprised when you came back after doing the deep dive on Nate Ament to say that you liked him more than you thought you would.
Well, I think at the time I was starting to do that, everybody was super down on him. And then I started doing it, and then the Nets thing happened, and everybody got kind of high on him. It's always
waves
relative.
of pre-draft talk, there's so much overcorrection.
Which is hilarious
in both
because, like,
directions.
there's no games being played. There's no measurements being taken. Like, all that stuff is
Cameron
in the
Carr
books.
scored 30 points in a NBA draft combine scrimmage. And everybody's like, Cameron Carr is the greatest thing.
But even like
since
Ament,
sliced
he
bread.
didn't even play in that combine scrimmage. Like, we all have had the measurements for weeks. Like, that didn't affect anybody's. And then all of a sudden, the Nets are interested in 6, and it's like, oh, maybe he's a top 10 pick. Maybe I like him a little bit more. So it's all relative to the consensus. And I would say if you're asking me if I'm as high as the highest people on him, if I would draft him 6th, I would say no.
Yeah.
But I do probably put him in that, like, 4th category of players where I could make an argument for him or Abuka Corey or LeBaron Philon or Jaden Quaintance. And like, I could see out an argument for him ahead of any of those guys. I could see an argument for those guys ahead of him.
Abram Davis in the chat saying, dysfunctional, I agree with you on both Flemings and Wagler. And look, because that was a part of Siegel's reporting today, we might as well just touch on it before we move on. The concept that, hey, other teams around the league are hearing that Bryson and the Bulls are interested in moving up from that 15th pick to get back into the top 10, and specifically because they would like a guard. One of these, tier 1 guard specific, and when you're talking tiers, whether it's a Keaton Wagler or a Flemings or one of those other names, Acuff you could throw in there. If that were the case, purely hypothetical, among that group of guards, if Bryson Graham is spending maybe lottery protected or top whatever protected, spending future draft capital to move up from 15 to get one of those guards, which guard would you want that to be?
That's a tough one. I
know.
would say
I don't know if I have an answer to that.
Part of it depends on who they take it for. If it's Darren Peterson, I feel like I don't really want to move up for any guard. I mean, obviously, like you still have Giddey
assuming
there.
you're getting Wilson at 4.
Let's assume we get Wilson at 4. I've really moved these guys around, and this is not where my board is probably going to end up on draft day, which probably is not going to be the correct order because I'm always overthinking things and overcorrecting. The two guys that I like in that spot right now are Acuff and Wagler. Initially, when I saw Acuff play, I was not a huge fan of his because I am very biased against smaller guards. But I do feel like watching him, he just has more upside than I think anybody else in that guard category, to where if he is going to hit, I think the ceiling is going to be very high. The three-point shooting is tremendous. I think he was 44% on threes, taking a ton of tough ones off the dribble, an elite passer. But I would say one of the worst defensive players in the draft. Does have better tools than people thought. I think he was 6'7" plus wingspan, so he's got a little bit there. But that's just I'm not going to bet on a guy who showed no effort defensively to become a good defender. That's just a really hard bet to make.
Fair.
And yeah, he could be a superstar type of offensive player. And if I really believe that, then I think he might be somebody that's worth moving up for. So I would say potentially him, although I would be pretty scared of his floor, as exciting as the ceiling is. The other one is Wagler. I think he's got a little bit more ability to play both on and off the ball. He's a tremendous shooter. I think he's going to be very good at that. And I think his offensive ceiling is a little bit higher than guys like Michael Brown or Kingston Fleming's, while also giving you the ability to play away from the ball. And so that combination is compelling to me in a way where, the smaller guard who is going to be a little bit more pigeonholed into a certain position, or that does have real defensive capabilities or liabilities, I should say, I think I would feel a little bit safer taking that sort of a risk on a Wagler or an Acuff. But frankly, I just don't personally right now feel like I would trade future picks to go get either of those guys.
Hannibal in the chat saying Acuff makes Zach LaVine look like Alex Caruso on defense. And Believer, love the enthusiasm and the idea, saying if we get Wilson, maybe trade Senge in the 15th to go get Wagler. If Wagler's going to be off the board by 7th at the latest, 5, 6, or 7, Senge in 15 ain't getting that done. Yeah. I find that very, very hard to believe. You're gonna need to come up with a richer offer than that.
Sorry, I also agree with dysfunctional. Flemings just has the attitude. You can't teach that. I agree with that. I also think his offensive capabilities are a little bit stronger than what shows just on the stat line. Houston was more of a 5-bunch group where they looked to Acuff a ton at Alabama, and he's just really strong at finishing. He goes to the free throw line a decent time, and he's a pretty good shooter just all around. So I like Flemings.
I like Flemings too, and every time I put these guys all in the same tier because I can truly make an argument for any of them over the other. He is the best defender of that group, Flemings. I also think he's incredible at touching the paint, really good driver, good athlete. The shot went in, but he didn't shoot a lot of them, so I would have a little bit of concern there. But just another small guard where it's the floor, or the bar, I should say, for getting those guys minutes at the highest level is just really challenging. You have to be a certain level of good in order to warrant that, because teams are going to hunt you. And so are you a really good defender, or are you a really good offensive player that can shape the way that teams have to defend you so much that it's worth you being out there, even if you are a defensive liability. So I think all those guys are really good, but I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm very glad that the Bulls are not drafting at 9th when they might have to make a decision about one of those guards, compared to 4th, where they're going to get somebody who I think is clearly in a higher tier.
For the both of you, I mean, you mentioned that Flemings, the other two guards, Acuff and
Wagler,
are all in the same tier. AJ's asking, if Flemings drops, and the rumors are true that he would, is Flemings there along with Swain and Carr? Who do you pick?
Flemings.
Flemings
running
Swain,
away
Carr
with a
15?
smile. I'm taking
Flemings.
King. If he falls to 15, is that the question?
Because I think
Casey Flemings falls to 15. Oh my God, yes.
Because I think the risk at 15 is a lot less than the risk of 15 plus a future pick.
Yeah,
you're betting so much on his outcomes and the result of that. If you're going to be willing to put a future pick on the table, I think the other guy we haven't talked about here that I would actually be more willing to go up for, and it's not perfect, but is Adai Mara. I'm probably higher on him than most. I think he's an elite rim protector. And I think the size and the element that he has is really coming back in the NBA right now. He's also a tremendous passer. I think you could run a lot of stuff through him. He reminds me of like a young Marc Gasol. Like I think he's really just going to be a dominant defensive player, a very good passer. I think he's not super mobile, but he is more mobile than some probably give him credit for, given his size. But 7'3", almost a 9'9" standing reach. Like I think he's going to be a real difference maker, and he's also like a tank. He played 40 games this year, and he played over 24 minutes a game. Like he's not one of those guys where, like, I was high on Donovan Clingan, but what threw me with him was he had multiple foot injuries in college. I'm like, I'm not drafting a 7'3" guy who's had multiple foot injuries. That's just like super dangerous.
Yeah.
And same with Edey, like a ton of injuries that he's still dealing with, but he's obviously been tremendous. But I like Adai Mara. I don't know that I would trade up for him. But that's probably who I would want if they did move up, just because I think he has the ability to really impact the game, even if he doesn't hit his absolute peak outcomes in a way where I think some of the guards would have to hit their peak outcomes in order to impact the game that way.
Yeah, and we are in an NBA renaissance of size matters.
Yeah.
Who's the Bulls center of the future? He's not here right now, I can tell you that. So, yeah, I absolutely can get behind that logic, Goat. All right, last thing we wanted to touch on as we wrap up today's show is a different section of the same latest report on that Stein Line Substack from our guy Marc Stein and Jake Fischer. And it is something that could impact who is drafting where on draft night, and that is the gigantically sized domino that goes by the name Giannis Antetokounmpo. In case you missed that report from Stein, quote, there really is a growing expectation throughout the NBA that the Bucks intend to trade their face of the franchise before the NBA draft begins on June 23rd. To get even more specific, the Bucks have been operating in advance of this draft as though they will have at least one additional first-round pick by the time it begins, in addition to their number 10 overall selection, end quote, of that Stein report. I find that wildly braggadocious, if that is true, and that's the way that Milwaukee is treating things, but it might signal that they finally are not only going to trade Giannis before the start of next season, but they're going to trade him sometime in the next week and a half, which is crazy.
Yeah, they need to get it done. Like, it's just hanging over their head. I think in order to like move forward as an organization and come up with a plan, you have to have the time in advance of making that plan. And so if you're doing this as like a off-the-cuff trade on draft night, you can't like think big picture about where you want to go over the next couple of years. So I think it's good to plan that way just in case you do make a trade. I think there was another line about them waiting for the finals because the Knicks might be interested again.
That was in there as well.
But yeah, I mean, you look at the teams that are potentially interested, it's like Miami's obviously the big one. They have 13.
Pick 13.
Golden State obviously has 11. They're one of the big ones. OKC has been bandied about. I don't really see that happening, but they've obviously got 12 and 17. Who else would be in the mix? New York has 24. Lakers, you can't never rule them out when it comes to star players. They've got 25. The Celtics have been rumored with Jaylen Brown. They have 27. So I don't know. I could see even like Minnesota has 28. They've been a team that has, they probably need to add a lot more than that. Same with some of these other teams. But those have been kind of the teams that have been on the radar. And so I think it's safe for them to operate that way. But that also could just be like maybe they want to move off of Miles Turner. I put that in my mock draft the other day, was Miles Turner for 14, I think it was. I don't know. Go click on the article. But that gave them another pick in the late lottery, or maybe it was 18, where they're just getting a little bit more reinforcements, and Charlotte's getting a center that really fits what they do.
Did you mention if you'd have Dallas there? They're picking 9. Like, would they go for it with Cooper?
Giannis?
Yeah.
I don't think they're ready, but like maybe Masai is just like super aggressive still, and they've got Kyrie coming back, and they don't have their future picks, so may as well just like go all in. And Cooper's good enough now where it could work. I could see it, but I just wouldn't put them at the top of the list.
Yeah, if it were still the old Cuban days of Mavs, I'd be like, don't rule them out. Just like you said, don't rule out the Lakers ever. Don't rule out the Cuban Mavs ever when you're talking about chasing big name players. But yeah, fascinating either way to see what's going to happen here with this Giannis trade, because it could be a big ripple effect domino that falls sometime between now and that June 23rd Tuesday night as everybody's getting excited about it. We will get out of here on that for today. Still tons ahead here on the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Sean, we got White Sox postgame tonight?
Maybe.
Maybe.
There's a big storm going on, so we'll
Yeah,
see
is
if
it
they play
still raining?
baseball.
Are we gonna be able to
Storm,
get home?
schmorm.
it's
Are they at home?
Raining, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe a rain delay. I
Well-
hope for your sake that there's not a game after a 2-hour rain delay.
No, it seems like it'll clear after 6, and it might pick up back up around like 10 or 11. So they have a window.
And Cubbies are out in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
So I believe it's Wednesday watch along for CHGO Cubs crew, and then they'll have post game. Hopefully, you'll have a double dose of CHGO baseball post games tonight. In the meantime, read GOAT stuff, allchgo.com. Check out his latest mock draft with trades included. Check out his draft profile videos available now in that YouTube playlist. They're great. Follow him, Will_Gottlieb. I'm Bulls_Peck. We're CHGO_Bulls. Shout out to our guy, Sean, on the controls. We're back tomorrow. Me and Big Dave, live episode, 4 p.m. Central Time. Fun guest will join us for the back half of that show. Tune in. See Red be good.
We all silly like the mayor.